Happy Wisdom Wednesday, everyone, and this week's book of the week is...
Gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up with the buzzer. Banks it in!
Happy Wisdom Wednesday, everyone. So the book of the week is by one of the greats in basketball, Kobe Bryant, The Mamba Mentality, How I Play. Introduction by Phil Jackson, photographs by Andrew D. Bernstein. Now, 2020 was a really rough year for basketball fans because out of the blue, Kobe Bryant, along with some friends and family, were killed in a tragic crash. And so I thought it'd be a great time to pull out this book because many people don't even realize that he had a book. And that's the thing that we should learn, is that some of the greats in history, whether it's sports and business, anything else, they actually wrote books distilling down all of their knowledge, all the tricks, all the strategies on how they became successful. Imagine that. And you can pick this up and read it and digest, whether you're a basketball player or not. And me as a business person, I gained a lot of value from this book, which is why I wanted to cover it. Now, the book is beautifully illustrated with these extremely high-resolution photographs that you've never seen of Kobe. Kobe during games, Kobe's during training, and all the people that are involved with it. And there's some key lessons from this book that I want to point out that any of us can take away from. Now, one thing I noticed immediately about the book is that rather than a bunch of chapters, it was divided out into introduction, some facts and figures, but really two key chapters: the process and the craft. And the bulk of the book is dedicated to photos and writings about the process. And the way you should see this book is that it's like a compilation of a lot of nice short blog posts with some beautiful pictures. So for those of you who don't maybe read as often, this is a great coffee table book for you to have to pick up and just read. So why is there so much content dedicated to the process? Now, one of the chapters, or the last page of this chapter of the process, talks about the Mamba mentality, and Kobe writes that the mindset of Mamba mentality isn't about seeking a result. It's more about the process of getting to that result. It's about the journey and the approach. It's a way of life. I do think that it's important in all endeavors to have that mentality. And so if we think about some of the great books in business that we've read in history, there's so much that's dedicated to the process. And the reason why is that once you get to a specific top of the mountain or goal, that's kind of it until you go on to the next thing. Right? But what do you rinse, wash, and repeat? What is exactly the process? So if you look at some of the books when it comes to sales strategies, like, unfortunately I don't have it here, but with a little internet magic, the Sales Management Code talks about when you go down to the process of daily activities, right? What do you do on a daily basis? What's your daily process and routine that helps you get to those business results that you want? Now, another wonderful chapter here that I found is part of the process. He talks about my routine changed over time, but my approach didn't. And he writes that he always tried to train and prepare intelligently. But as he got older, his pre and post game routine evolved, of course. He mentions that when you're younger, you work on explosive things. And as you get older, you focus shifts towards preventative measures. And that's all par for the course. The only aspect that can't change, though, is the obsession. And not only does Kobe talk about this, I've heard Michael Jordan talk about this, Conor McGregor, Muhammad Ali, Steve Jobs, this idea that you have to be obsessed with what you're doing, right? And obsession is really the thing that's going to get you to dig deeper, work a little bit longer, work a little bit harder, work a little bit more intelligently, right? Hard work is not enough, right? You can work really hard and amount to nothing. The idea, though, is, are you obsessed enough? And I would take it even further and say, does an idea possess you enough where you would lose sleep over it, where you will sacrifice for it? Because this is the thing when it comes to success. People see that, whether it's Kobe Bryant or Steve Jobs or anybody who's very successful in our eyes, when they get to the top of the mountain and we see all the success, what we don't realize is that success is a very, very unnatural, uncomfortable process. It requires a lot of pain, a lot of sacrifices, right? And it's not easy. Do you think Elon Musk, in running all his companies, he finds that to be a very enjoyable activity? Of course he does, but on the way there, it is painful. Take a look at this one clip of him when he talks about this in an interview process.
So I think that a lot of times people think like creating companies going to be fun. I would say it's not. It's really not that fun. I mean, there are periods of fun, and there are periods of where it's just awful. And particularly if you're the CEO of the company, you actually have a distillation of all the worst problems in the company. There's no point in spending your time on things that are going right. So you only spend your time on things that are going wrong. And there are things that are going wrong that other people can't take care of. So you have like the worst. You have a filter for the crappiest problem in the company, the most pernicious and painful problem. So I wouldn't say I think you have to feel quite compelled to do it, and have a fairly high pain threshold. And there's a friend of mine who says like starting a company is like staring into the abyss and eating glass. There's some truth to that. The staring into the abyss part is that you're going to be constantly facing the extermination of the company. Because most startups fail. It's like 90%, arguably 99% of startups fail. So, that's the staring into the abyss part. You're constantly saying, okay, if I don't get this right, the company will die. And the eating glass part is you've got to do the problems. You've got to work on the problems that the company needs you to work on, not the problems you want to work on. And so that's you end up working on problems that you'd really wish you weren't working on. And so that's the eating glass part. And that goes on for a long time.
So to my point, it's a very uncomfortable process. But part of it is, do you have that obsession, right? And part of that obsession is, you can change your routine. You can change your method of what you want to do. But in terms of what you're trying to achieve, you should be unwavering in it. Again, this all goes back to the process. What is the process? Right? How do you evolve it? How do you improve on it? One of the other chapters that Kobe has, and again, these are all very short, like blogs kind of, is this chapter with LeBron James called "I Always Aim to Kill the Opposition." And he talks about this idea of having a killer mentality, right? Unwavering, And again, it's one of those things that it borders on the level of obsession or even possession of an idea. Right? When it came to Kobe, he took things so seriously that even when it comes to warming up, he mentioned that some players, they wear headphones to listen to music, relax and everything. He didn't, whenever you see a video of Kobe wearing headphones, he's not listening to any music. He actually just puts that on so people leave him alone because he's literally laser focused like a hawk. He has this mentality, this obsession. Again, this goes back to the process. How do you prepare for your day? How do you train? How do you take failure? How do you develop resilience, right? And how do you handle success? Do you act like a moron? Kind of like these old, younger Laker players who won a game after a losing streak?
This is from after that game.
This got interesting. Hey, come back to Force OT. You got some friends here.
You feel me? We back in the building. Y'all thought we was gone. My man Jay Lane was doing his thing. Jay Hill doing his thing.
Nick out there hitting his free throws. You know how he do it. Jay Lane going to the basket like it ain't nothing to it but to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, Mike, man, you got a nice suit on today too, man.
Appreciate that, Swag.
You got that.
Men's Warehouse.
Now, would that happen if you were there? Would there be a celebration?
And you can see Kobe's frustration there. Or do you act like you've been there, right? For me, one of the great videos I saw was, and I can't seem to remember it, a young high school football player in some Netflix special who had this winning game, and everyone was congratulating him, saying, "Oh my God, you did amazing, everything." And he was just calm, didn't even care. And somebody asked him, like, "Hey, you're not even happy?" And his response was, "Hey man, it's just another day for me. Just another day. Act like you've been there." Something else that really stuck out to me, and again, it's so amazing how often great and successful people, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Kobe Bryant, they talk about the value of reading. So Kobe saw value in reading to the point that he went and read the referee's manual, right? How many basketball players go and read the referee's manual? But by reading the referee manual, he realized that when the ball's at a certain point in the court, the referees have to be positioned in certain areas, right? And when they're positioned in those areas, there's a bit of a dead zone or essentially a blind spot they have. So he, knowing this, had a massive advantage over the competition where he did take advantage of the rules. Maybe he had to travel a little bit, maybe he pushed it a little bit, things that normally would be called, but because he memorized and learned the game and read, he found these massive areas for opportunity. So again, go back to the process, right? And more specifically in his chapter after the process, the craft. How do you master your craft, right? My great and late mentor, Chris Sells, one of the great sales executives in medical device and surgical robotics, wrote a great article talking about how do you master your craft. And it's about really diving in discipline and obsession about how you improve it. So one of the last things I wanted to show you about this idea of obsession is this photo right here. Now, this photo was taken back in 1998, and Kobe talks about this photo in the book. And he says, look at the dichotomy between me and Michael Jordan. If you look at Michael Jordan, his back is straight, his body is straight, his wrist is positioned in a certain way. He's in full control of his body versus Kobe, who was very young at the time, is leaning over, he's leaning in, he's off balance and everything. And he realized that because Michael Jordan was fully in control of his body, if he decided to move any certain way, he was the one who was in control. So because his body was straight and in equilibrium and balanced, he was able to have the upper hand with Kobe and dictate where Kobe was going to move, because Kobe's center of gravity was moving forward, right? And looking at this one photo, again, Kobe got this from one photo, right? He studied the photo very, very carefully when he lost to Michael Jordan and then realized that's what I wasn't doing, and then corrected it. So again, it goes back to, again, all about process, more specifically obsession. So if you're a salesperson, are you obsessed about your sales process? Are you disciplined about what you do? Do you wake up in the morning and just kind of, get to cold calling and prospecting, or do you have a plan, right? If you're a marketer, when you launch a campaign, if something fails, do you blame the campaign ad? Do you blame the platform? Do you start digging very deeply into the copy, digging into the imagery that you use? Do you study some of the great copywriting books that have been written and try to take those approaches and apply it to your marketing, right? This is when it comes down to, which is obsession and really focusing on the whole process, because the whole thing is not just, focusing on the goal and the end point is not going to do anything. Right? It's like if you want to win a basketball game, do you spend all your time obsessing and focusing on the score? No, you spend all your time and focusing on the moment, on the process that's in front of you to make sure that you get to that level of achievement. So that's the book of the week. I highly recommend it. I love it because, again, beautiful photos. There's a lot of really interesting facts and stories in here that if you're a basketball fan, and especially a Kobe fan, you'll love. And then more specifically, I think it's a great way for you to learn from one of the best. That's what I always recommend, and that's what this show's about, is learning from the best. So that's your book of the week. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please make sure you subscribe, turn on your notifications, and leave a comment. And as always, happy Wisdom Wednesday. I'll see you next week as always. And for the time being, hey, be safe. Buy a book, start reading. I'll catch you later.